Thanks for your time, Mr. Secretary.
It's a pleasure.
President Obama announced the U.S. troops drawdown in Afghanistan. What do you think? How much it matched the ground reality in Afghanistan?
Well, I welcome this announcement. It is in line with our own thinking in the United Kingdom. I think progress is being made on the ground in Afghanistan, and I've seen that for myself in Helmand, for instance, in my visit during the course of this week. And we have to remember that it's the Afghan National Security Forces who are being built up all the time, who by 2014 should be able to maintain security on their own. And so I think President Obama's announcement is in line with that. It represents the withdrawal of the surge, the additional US forces. Of course, there will still be a huge number of United States forces here in Afghanistan and of many other nations as well.
Mr. Secretary, most of Afghans think differently, that they see the drawdown as a type of failure to the strategy policy. Since that you are the biggest ally of the US in a war against terror, what's your perspective?
Well, as I say, I think it is the right approach, and I think it's important to focus our minds on transition, on Afghans taking responsibility. And this can be done. I've seen it in Lashkar this week, of the Afghan police forces and army working together, dealing with security incidents on their own, without the assistance of US or British forces. That has already been happening for some months. Now, that is not yet ready in all parts of Afghanistan, but it is already happening in some places in Afghanistan, in the 7 areas that are ready for transition in July. And so I think it is important to concentrate on that, to think about transition and how Afghans prepare for transition, taking their own responsibility.
Compared to the Iraq situation, do you think the strategy policy in Afghanistan achieved the goals?
Well, certainly the insurgency, the progress of the insurgency has been halted by the surge, and in many places it has been reversed. There is no doubt about that security gains have been made on the ground. And remember that President Obama's announcement does not affect the number of troops operating in this year's fighting season. The bulk of it only takes effect well into next year, after that fighting season has begun. So I think, again, we have to see it in the light of that. This President Obama's announcement does represent the withdrawal of the surge, but it also represents a continuing huge effort by the United States and its allies in Afghanistan, working with the Afghan people, but increasingly looking to the Afghan people to take charge of their own affairs and their own security, and that has to be a good thing.
The Taliban attacks has been doubled since 2010. In 2011, it's rising again. How much you think it will, the drawdown will impact on a Taliban side, and also the other troops contributed nation in Afghanistan?
Well, each nation will make their own decision, of course. But there will remain a huge international coalition in Afghanistan. And again, I think it's important to understand that President Obama's announcement doesn't mean the end of that. On the Taliban attacks, well, the figures for those vary greatly from one part of Afghanistan to another. Certainly when we look at the south and at Helmand, where I have been and where British troops are deployed, there is undoubtedly progress that has been made in security. And when I compare it to visiting Helmand last year or 3 years ago, there is no doubt that in so many places the situation is much better than it was then. So I think we have to continue to work together in that spirit. We have made a lot of progress. The progress that we make in the future will increasingly depend on the efforts of the Afghan forces themselves and the support of the Afghan people for those forces. But that is right, that is how it should be. This is a sovereign nation that should be able to determine its own future.
What if the situation getting worse?
Well, as I say, that's not the situation. The situation has improved, and it's encouraging to see signs of economic improvement as well. I can see coming to Kabul economic changes that are an improvement on a year ago. I've seen some of that even in Helmand as well. So I think the situation has improved, the revenues of government have increased, and again it's important to focus on Afghans taking their own responsibility. The situation with so many foreign forces deployed in Afghanistan clearly is not something that can be sustained forever, and not something that people would want forever. So over these next 3 years to full transition in 2014, we have to work together on making sure that it's the Afghans who can maintain their own security without presenting a danger to the rest of the world.
Some Afghans see the drawdown process as a beginning of the end. What's your perspective on this?
Well, I think this is an important point because there is a long-term friendship and partnership between countries like ours in the United Kingdom, and I think this applies to the United States as well, and the people of Afghanistan. If the people of Afghanistan would like that, as I think they would. And we will be here for the long term with development aid, with economic cooperation, with training or mentoring, with the expertise that we can bring from our own economies. There's a tremendous amount of help that we can give to Afghanistan in the future. So no one in Afghanistan should think their friends are at any point going to walk away. But we do look on the military side, of course we look increasingly for the Afghan forces that we have been helping to build up to take on a bigger and bigger share of the security responsibilities.
For the first time, President Obama mentioned the peace talk with Taliban. Because UK is also involved in some sort of, this was in the past the supporter of the dialogue with the Taliban. So how much progress you think has been made on this regard?
I think it's too early to speak of progress being made. Contacts do take place with the Taliban. Britain will assist in any way we can. It's important this is an Afghan-led process, that nothing is determined for the people of Afghanistan outside Afghanistan. It is an Afghan-led process. This is for President Karzai, for the High Peace Council to take forward, working with other governments in the region, such as the government of Pakistan, of course, that is an important nation in this regard. So I think this is the right process. It's right to set about a process of reconciliation, but its success depends on many different people and on their willingness to make peace. In the absence of that, of course, it is vital that that build-up of the Afghan forces continues.
Yeah. Would the US and in the UK government willing to negotiate with Mullah Omar, the Taliban supreme leader, and groups like Haqqani Network?
Well, as I said, this is an Afghan-led process. It is for countries like us to support or facilitate in such a process, but it must be an Afghan-led process. It's not for us to decide the future of Afghanistan. It is for Afghans to decide that.
Yeah.
So
if the Afghans decide that they will talk and negotiate with Mullah Omar and Haqqani Network, so you will be fine with this?
Well, that, as I say, is for Afghans to decide. And President Karzai has set out the conditions involved here: to respect the constitution, to cut ties with Al-Qaeda, to end violence. So for people who are prepared to do that, clearly there is a reconciled future available, whoever they are. But whether that can be achieved, of course, we don't know. So we have to continue to improve security, improve the strength of the Afghan forces, continue the huge security operations that are going on now this summer, and that the international community are making great sacrifices to support.
How do you see the Pakistan role in a peace talk? And would you think the civilian government in Pakistan would able to stop ISI helping the Taliban groups?
Well, the government of Pakistan has a major role, of course, and I think it's good that relations between the governments of Afghanistan and Pakistan are in better shape, I think, than for a long time past. President Karzai's recent visit to Pakistan, I think, was a success and has set up a pattern of closer cooperation on these issues between those two governments. So we do look to the government of Pakistan to support the reconciliation process, and to all parts of the government of Pakistan to do that. We will continue to urge them from the United Kingdom to do so. It's in the interests of Pakistan, as well as in the interests of Afghanistan, to bring about a wider peace. And so we will continue to urge them to do that.
Yeah. Is there any differences between the UK and US approach towards Afghanistan?
No, not really. We, of course, regularly discuss Afghanistan, such as on President Obama's recent visit to London. But the strategy that we pursue is an agreed one. And I think the important point is it is agreed much more widely than that. I have been here this week with the Foreign Minister of the United Arab Emirates, so a European country and an Arab country, visiting together. Our forces are serving alongside each other in the south of Afghanistan. Our approach to the questions we've been discussing is exactly the same. And so there is tremendous international support for Afghanistan and tremendous international recognition that transition must succeed over these next few years.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.